Hi there, welcome to Painting Queer History, where I draw portraits of historical figures while telling you about their lives. This episode we'll be talking about Bessie Smith. I actually drew two portraits this time, so you'll have to tell me which one's better at the end of the video. Born in 1892 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Bessie Smith was the daughter of laborers and a part-time preacher. Both parents and one of her brothers died before she was 10, leaving her in the care of her sister. Smith and her brother Andrew would busk on street corners, singing and dancing to his guitar to help their family survive. By 1904, her brother Clarence would leave to join a traveling troupe. When he returned in 1912, he was able to get Bessie Smith an audition, where she was hired as a dancer, as the troupe already had a singer in Ma Rainey. She eventually became part of the chorus line and later became a star on the Theater Owners Booking Association. The Theater Owners Booking Association was a vaudeville circuit that booked black performers in the 1920s. It was also known as TOBA, as Toby Time, and as Tough on Black Artists, as they had worse touring arrangements and pay compared to the white vaudeville circuits. TOBA was considered less prestigious than certain black theaters in Philadelphia, Harlem, and D.C. By 1923, Bessie Smith had begun her recording career after being signed by Columbia Records. During her career, she did also audition for Black Swan Records, which was a black-owned and operated company, but was rejected for being too rough and working class in her behavior in the eyes of the company. With Columbia Records, her Cemetery Blues was issued as part of the company's Race Records series. Race Records were 78 RPM phonograph records that were marketed primarily towards black audiences in the 1920s through 1940s. Records were primarily African-American artists performing jazz, blues, R&B, gospel, and comedy as companies realized the gap in the market. Cemetery Blues had Downhearted Blues and Gulf Coast Blues on it, both of which were very successful. Bessie Smith's records were a hit. She became a headliner for Toba and was one of the highest-paid black performers of her time. In the winter months, she would perform in theaters, and in the summer in tents, traveling with her own rail car, constantly on tour. Her rail car was 78 feet long, bright yellow, and a solution to performing in the segregated South, as it provided her crew a place to sleep when they could not find hotels or inns that would serve them. Columbia marketed her as the Queen of the Blues, but the press soon changed that to Empress of the Blues. At the same time, in 1923, Bessie Smith married Jack Gee. This marriage would not last, as Gee could not handle her success or her bisexuality. Bessie Smith would lavish gifts and money onto Jack with her newfound success. There were affairs on both sides, with Smith having affairs with both men and women, while Gee had affairs with women. Both Gee and Smith assaulted each other at various points in their marriage in retaliation for affairs, sometimes going after each other's affairs partners as well. The women Smith would have affairs with were sometimes fellow performers in the troupe, such as the dancer Lillian Simpson. Although Gee and Smith did not seek divorce, their marriage did end in 1929 after Smith found out that Gee had used a significant amount of the money that had been given to produce a show to instead have an affair with the vaudeville performer Gertrude Saunders. After this point, Gee and Smith were no longer together. Also in the 1920s and 30s, Bessie Smith continued to record with a shift from acoustic to electrical recording. A number of her records would become bestsellers in their release years, and she was often accompanied by well-known musicians such as Louis Armstrong, Coleman Hawkins, Fletcher Henderson, and more. Also while touring, she utilized live radio performances to spread her music. In some occasions, she would perform at white theaters and then after perform at a black radio station late into the night. Sound and film affected vaudeville ticket sales, and the Great Depression impacted both vaudeville ticket sales and record sales. She continued to perform at theaters and clubs throughout this. Bessie Smith did appear in the 1929 Broadway musical Pansy, which was a flop, but she is said to be one of the few good parts of it. Also, 1929 was her only film appearance in St. Louis Blues. In 1933, she recorded 4 sides for Okeh Records, a company that Columbia had acquired 8 years prior. These 4 recordings were closer to swing as opposed to her usual blues, as she had begun to shift with the times. She was paid a non-royalty fee of $150 in 1933 for these 4 recordings. By an inflation calculator, this is about $4,891.31 in 2025. These would be her last recordings. She recorded 160 recordings over the course of her career with Columbia Records, including the 4 for the Okeh subsidiary. Smith often channeled the working class, resulting in her work sometimes being written off as poor taste. Her songs spoke on women's sexuality and empowerment, as well as poverty, intra-race conflict, and dealing critically with social issues and the justice system. On September 26, 1937, Bessie Smith was critically injured in a car crash. She was in the passenger seat as her common-law marriage partner Richard Morgan was driving and misjudged the speed of a slow-moving truck in front of him and sideswiped the vehicle. Morgan was uninjured in the crash. The first person on the scene was Dr. Hugh Smith, unrelated, and he is considered to be one of the more reliable eyewitnesses to the event. Dr. Smith addressed Bessie Smith's injuries and brought her off the road for safety and sent his fishing partner to go to a nearby house to call an ambulance. The ambulance took so long to arrive that Dr. Smith had begun to prepare to load Bessie Smith into his own vehicle when another car appeared and crashed into the vehicles and almost hit Bessie Smith. The occupants of this new vehicle survived. 2 ambulances arrived and Bessie Smith was brought to G.T. Thomas Afro-American Hospital in Clarksdale, Mississippi, where she died that morning. An estimated 10,000 mourners filed past her coffin on October 3rd in Philadelphia. She was buried at Mount Lawn Cemetery. Her grave was unmarked as Jack G., her estranged husband, pocketed money raised for a gravestone on at least one occasion. She would finally get a gravestone on August 7, 1970, due to the efforts of a former employee, Juanita Green, and the singer, Janis Joplin. The gravestone reads, "The greatest blues singer in the world will never stop singing." Posthumously, she and her works have been greatly honored. Bessie Smith has been inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame in 1980, the Big Band and Jazz Hall of Fame in 1981, the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1984, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989 for being an early influence on rock, and the Jazz Hall of Fame in 2008. She was also awarded the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1989. 3 of her singles have received the Grammy Hall of Fame Award for their historical significance: Empty Bed Blues, which was recorded in 1928 and inducted in 1923, St. Louis Blues, which was recorded in 1925 and inducted in 1993, and Downhearted Blues, which was recorded in 1923 and inducted in 2006. Downhearted Blues also had the honor of being added to the National Recording Registry for preservation by the Library of Congress in 2002. The National Recording Registry began preserving in 2002 and at first selected 50 recordings each year before switching to 25 recordings a year in 2006. Nominations are public. Individuals may submit up to 50 nominations per year, and the Library of Congress's selections are announced in the spring. Now back to Bessie Smith. Downhearted Blues has also been inducted into the Songs of the Century by the National Endowment for the Arts and as one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll as compiled by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The USPS honored Bessie Smith as an artist on a 29-cent stamp in 1994 as part of the Legends of American Music stamp series. More recently, in 2023, Rolling Stone ranked her as 33rd in their 200 greatest singers of all time. In addition to her art being influential, she was influential in art. In the present day, the Bessie Smith Strut is sponsored every year at the River Bend Festival by the Bessie Smith Cultural Center in Chattanooga. There have been tribute albums by other artists and song samplings across genres. Biographies and film have been made about her life. Her recordings were digitally remastered to improve the sound quality and to try and correct the way gramophone recordings would have changed her pitch. Please comment to let me know if you like the portrait, if you have any other interesting facts about Bessie Smith, or if there's a figure in the LGBTQ plus history that you'd like to see me cover next. If you want to see more of this series, then I'd recommend subscribing so you see them as they come out. Also, I'll be adding the National Recording Registry nomination site to the description below, so if you want, you can check out, see if there's a singer that you think needs to be nominated or a song that needs to be preserved. Best wishes, and I hope you give Bessie Smith a listen if you have the time. Bye!